And if you don't, you're always going to be in the same place, wishing you could have, wanting to have something, and you're never going to get very far. How do you achieve big goals that are sometimes scary, sometimes intimidating, and you really don't know what to do, and you just don't even want to start because it's so intimidating? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Achieving goals aren't always easy. There are moments that are difficult, they're hard, they're embarrassing, they're oh gosh, you just don't think you're going to accomplish them. But yet, that's what keeps most people from succeeding, because they don't push through the parts that are a little bit uncomfortable. They don't push through the parts that they don't know. They don't push through the parts that they're embarrassed. And you're always going to be embarrassed and uncomfortable and doubt that you're going to succeed as you're doing something new, whatever it is that you want to achieve. And so, for example, I live in South America for part of the year, and so I've had to learn Spanish over the years to be able to get by here very comfortably. I don't want to get by like a foreigner. I want to get by and speak the local language and be able to converse with the people because they're so nice and friendly here. I live in Colombia, South America, part of the year. And so I've had to learn Spanish, and this was incredibly intimidating. When I started, I knew virtually no Spanish. I knew how to ask where the bathroom was, and I knew how to ask for a beer, and that was about it. And so I started off at less than a 3-year-old's education level in Spanish. So I had to start off brand new. So I'm looking at these little kids, and they're speaking away in Spanish, 3, 4, 5 years old, and they're speaking away. I'm like, I can't even speak at the level to them. Can't even speak to a damn kid. And so you go through the process and you learn, and it's uncomfortable and it's embarrassing, and you're gonna fail and you're gonna fall and you're gonna stumble. That's part of the journey to success. And if you look at success as a place to get to unscathed, you're never gonna succeed at anything really great. You have to be willing to go through the challenges and the difficulties and the doubts and all of the things you have to go through. You have to literally fail your way to success. And that's what people look at failure as this bad thing. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is a good thing because that's how you get to success. There is no way to get to anything worthwhile in life without failure. Because if you lived a life so safe, you'll achieve nothing at all. And so as you're growing up, you learned your language, and you made lots of mistakes as you were learning your language. When you started to play the piano or whatever instrument you played in school, you made so many mistakes. And if you tried to learn an instrument as an adult, oh my gosh, it's even worse. Whatever it is that you want to start new. So maybe you have a job and you want to start a side business. There's going to be a whole world of things that you don't know, and so many times that you're going to doubt that it's possible, and you're not going to know how to do things, and you're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to push through. And that's how you succeed in life. And that's why most people don't, because they don't push through that difficulty. But you will if you take on the idea that success isn't a destination. It's like, I'm not becoming a millionaire. I'm on the journey to becoming a millionaire so that I can make endless amounts of money. But if your goal is just to say, hey, I want to be a millionaire, well, then that's an end goal, and you're going to be disappointed when you get there, because now you get there, you're like, okay, now what? You're going to think it's all about the money, but it's not about the money. If you want to become a millionaire, you got to become a millionaire in your mind first to be able to get there. If you want to be a healthy, fit person, you got to be a healthy, fit person in your mind to get there. And then you go through and push through all of those difficulties in life, and you'll achieve more than most anybody achieves. You'll be in the top tiny percentage of people who have succeeded in a big way. And whether it's weight loss, learning music, learning a language, becoming a millionaire, or starting a business, being successful in relationships, all of this works the same similar way. You've got to step out of your comfort zone, and you've got to push through as what Seth Godin calls the dip. You got to push through the resistance, the hard parts, the things you don't know, things that are difficult, they're embarrassing. When I first started speaking Spanish, and I was so bad, I would get into a taxi so that I could practice saying the simplest things, like, hi, I'm Croy, I'm from New York, I've been living here for whatever months, and I say the same thing over and over. Then eventually the introductions became really easy. And then I'd move on to the next part of the conversation, and then the next part of the conversation, and I just built, it's building blocks, one block after the other. Same thing with making money, same thing with being healthy and fit, same thing with being great at relationships, same thing with feeling good about yourself, same thing about not procrastinating and being self-disciplined, self-focused, self-motivated. It's all the same thing. You've got to push through that resistance. You got to push through that dip. And if you don't, you're always going to be in the same place, wishing you could have, wanting to have something, and you're never going to get very far. Now, you may be listening to this thinking, this sounds good. Yeah, I get it. I agree with you. Okay, we got to do that. But I haven't really given you any specific advice. So how do you do that? How do you push through the resistance? How do you push through the discomfort, the embarrassment? Well, you've got to be comfortable. First thing, got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the very first thing. And so when you can get yourself out of your comfort zone, the more you expand your comfort zone, the more you go outside of what feels good and what feels comfortable, the easier everything will be. That's why I got into those taxis at first, because it was uncomfortable, but it was a safe way of being uncomfortable. Then I would start talking with other people. And the reason I know this, one of the reasons, is because I had a Spanish teacher. I had a few of them, and they're all fantastic people. But I had one particular teacher. He didn't really teach me Spanish so much as he taught me the mindset about speaking a second language. Now, I was thinking, like, what are you talking about? Like, he's like, no, you got to learn how to speak a second language. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm hiring you for. You got to teach me how to speak Spanish. What are the words? What are the verbs? What are all the things I have to learn? Like, no, you don't get it. You have to learn to be comfortable speaking a second language. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And so he took me out into the local parks and restaurants and things like that. And we're walking. I had no idea what was going on, what was going to happen. And so we're going out and we're walking. He's like, you see that guy over there? Go talk to him. Start a conversation with him. And I'm like, are you kidding? My Spanish isn't even remotely close enough to be able to have a conversation with some random stranger. And so I go up to this guy. It was in a like a little park area, and he's leaning on the railing. He's just sitting there leaning on the railing. It's lunch break. And he's just sitting there eating. So I go over there and I lean on the railing and I look at him and I say, buenos dias. And he looks at me like, who the hell are you? Coming up and talking to me. And I see this expression on his face. I'm like, oh my God, this isn't going well. And then I started talking to him, and he realized that I was a foreigner and my language ability was very, very low. And so he's just like, okay. He starts talking to me, and we go through the regular, small, good morning, how are you kind of things. And then I got to a point that I was uncomfortable, and I was like, well, it was nice to meet you. I'll see you later. That was so terrifying to me. If it was in English, you go up and speak to anybody. For me, it's not a big deal now, but it used to be when I was a child. I was horribly shy. And now learning to speak another language, it's that shyness that I felt as a child because I was a little small and awkward, that comes back to me as I felt like I was still that same child again. When I'm an adult, I've been an adult for a long time. And yet in my mind, in my emotions, in that moment, I felt like a child. And you have to overcome that. And then we go to walking a little bit. He's like, see that guy over there? Go talk to him. Then we go walk again. He's like, see that guy? Go talk to him. So he kept forcing me out of my comfort zone. And it all was fine. I sounded like an idiot, I'm sure, because my Spanish was so limited at that time. But he got me past the comfort. And from that day on, it was so much easier. And so if I felt shy, if I felt intimidated, if I felt uncomfortable, if I felt embarrassed, I knew how to push through to be able to speak Spanish to someone. So now this weekend, I'm visiting a different part of the country, and my buddy and I were taking the buses everywhere we're going. I've never taken a bus before. But I got some advice from some locals, and I asked them, how does the system work here? Because I've never had to use a bus system before, because I've always had a car in the U.S. I've never needed to use public transportation. So I asked for a little bit of advice, get on the bus. I asked the driver, is this going to whatever place we're going to? And he says yes, and we get in the bus, and we figured it out. And by the end of the weekend, we're kind of experts on public transportation. Doesn't sound like a big deal. Millions and millions and millions of people use public transportation every day. But for us, it was brand new. And for me to be able to speak in Spanish at a reasonably strong level, because I'm very strongly conversational at this point, to be able to speak to the drivers and ask them where we're going, and occasionally we would speak to people in the bus and get into a conversation, it was very uncomfortable for me still, but I was able to manage and get through it. So if you're wanting to lose weight, going to the gym for the first time, especially if you're overweight, this is going to be a very uncomfortable situation. It's going to be very difficult. But how do you get past that? Well, maybe you want to go there for the first time and just walk around and look around. I mean, if you're that uncomfortable, if you're in that position where you're just so self-conscious, I get it. No, there's no issue with that. There's nothing to be embarrassed about with that. But we feel the embarrassment. It's not rational, but we feel it. And we have lots of reasons for this. You're thinking everybody's fit, they're in shape, they're going to look at me, they're going to make fun of me, they're going to be saying things in their mind about me and things like that. Maybe not that maybe or maybe not that's going to be true. But maybe the first time you go in and you just go in and you walk around, you just kind of get a scene of it, and then you leave. Maybe you don't even work out the first time, or maybe you just go on the treadmill and walk, or maybe you just do something very simple. You just start. And after you do this, after a few days, a few weeks, a few months, you won't think twice about it, even if you haven't got down to the weight you want to be just yet. If you can hire a trainer that'll make the process so much quicker, easier, faster, better. If you can't, then watch videos online and then go to the gym and do it. That's how my son learned how to exercise, how to weight train. He didn't want me to teach him. And so he watched all these guys on YouTube and Instagram and all the TikTok and all these other things. He's like watching all these guys, like, okay, I like this. He taught himself how to be a bodybuilder, and now he's from this itty bitty little scrawny thing to this nice, muscular, good looking kid. And so he learned that on his own, but he went there at the hours that had the least amount of people and a couple of his buddies, and that's how they learned it, and they all went through it together. So that's another thing you could do. You could do it with someone else. And so that's another way. So you get somebody who's experienced, or you do it with somebody else, or you just go through it and you figure it out on your own. And when you get to that point that you're uncomfortable for whatever reason, that you're embarrassed, you're doubting yourself, you just don't want to do it, any reason that you feel resistance, that's when you notice, like, oh, whoa, what is this? I'm feeling resistance. What do I have to do to overcome that? Here's a key. What do I have to do to get past this resistance, to overcome this moment? And you think about it for a second, well, I could do this, or I could do this. I could go to the gym for the first time and just walk around and just look and to see what the layout is, so I know what the layout is. Or I'm gonna go to the gym for the first time and I'm just gonna walk on the treadmill and just get comfortable doing that. I'm gonna go speak to someone for the first time in my second language, even though I barely know any words. It's what can you do to get past that resistance? Because I don't wanna say it's a fear, because most of the time it isn't a real fear, like a fear of dying from falling off a cliff. That's a real fear. Fear of getting hit by a car as you're crossing the street. That's smart. But most of the fears that we have are irrational, and I don't call them fears because most of the time, this is important, most of the time, it's just a resistance. It's a resistance for the unknown. It's a resistance to the things you haven't done yet. And so then you pause for a minute. How do I get through this resistance? In any way, shape, or form, at any level, even if it's just a tiny bit. You're super shy, you want to talk to people, then just say hi to them. Just start and smile at them. Smile at everybody. When I was overcoming my shyness as a younger guy, I would just smile at people for no reason at all. And I found out that most people actually smile back. Occasionally you'll get like the scowl or the comment or something like that. I say, hi, how are you? Good morning. And I would say it to everybody, men, women, children, old people, young people. It didn't matter. Just did it because I had to overcome my own ridiculously irrational fear of talking to other people. So it's staying in the supermarket, talk to somebody. Going online to whatever, talk to somebody. Walking by, talking to somebody. And I had to relearn how to do that again when I learned my second language, which was very difficult, but easier the second time around. So I think the third time around it'll be much easier because I want to learn a third language now. But that's what you have to do. Push through the resistance. Just push through the resistance. And you'll get better, and your comfort zone will get bigger, and you'll succeed more, you'll achieve more, and you'll get to do the things that you want to do that in the past wasn't possible for you. But they'll become possible for you organically, naturally, and with relative ease. So go ahead, go do something that's outside of your comfort zone and comment below.